My ex wanted me to give her money for all the time she paid for herself to compensate for all the time she spent with me. So this happened about a month after my ex, Lisa, 29F, dumped me, 30M, because, in her words, she deserved better. Honestly, I wasn't too surprised by the breakup. Lisa was always obsessed with appearances, looking rich, acting high class, making sure everyone thought she was living the dream. I wasn't broke or anything, but I wasn't out here driving a luxury car or dropping $200 on a casual dinner, which, apparently, was a deal-breaker for her. Anyway, after she left, I thought that was it. I moved on, focused on myself, and figured I dodged a bullet. Then, out of nowhere, I get an email from her. It was an invoice. A literal invoice. She had calculated that I owed her $7,680 for her time and expenses during our relationship. I thought it was a joke at first, but no. She had an itemized list and everything. Meals she paid for, $1, $2.20 gas money when she drove us places, $5.40 concert/event tickets she covered, $9.60 clothing and beauty expenses she invested in while dating me, $2, 100 times spent with me, calculated at $15 per hour, because apparently she should have been compensated for dating me, $2, $8.60. Yeah. She was dead serious. The best part? The email ended with, I expect payment within 2 weeks. Let me know if you need a payment plan. A payment plan. After reading Lisa's email, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. She had actually sat down, done the math, and decided that I owed her nearly $8,000 for the privilege of dating her. It was so ridiculous that I almost wanted to frame it. Ignoring her felt like the logical choice, but curiosity got the better of me. I sent a short email asking what she was thinking. Her response came quickly. She was completely serious. In her mind, relationships worked like financial investments, and since she had put time and money into me, she expected a return. Lisa had always been obsessed with wealth and status, but looking back, the warning signs had been there from the start. When we first started dating, we were both broke, fresh out of college, trying to figure out life. We split meals, went on cheap dates, and supported each other. I thought we were growing together, but now I realized she had never really cared about building something as equals. Even when money wasn't a huge issue, Lisa had a habit of complaining whenever she had to pay for anything. If she covered her own coffee, she'd sigh about how a real man would never let his girl pay. If she paid for gas, she'd casually bring it up later, like she was keeping a tab. I never thought much of it at the time, but now it all made sense. She had actually been calculating this, treating our relationship like an unpaid internship. Her email wasn't just a money grab. It was proof that she had never seen me as a partner, just a provider who had failed to meet her expectations. A few hours later, my phone started blowing up. Lisa wasn't done. She sent multiple messages about how she had given years of her life to me and how I was selfish for refusing to acknowledge the financial burden she had carried. Then came the final, desperate threat. If I didn't pay, she'd take legal action. That was when I knew I was done. Blocking her was the easiest decision I ever made. I figured she'd eventually move on and find someone else to bankroll her lifestyle. But if you think this is where the insanity ends, you'd be wrong. Blocking Lisa should have been the end of it. I figured she'd be mad for a few days, rant to her friends, and then move on. Nope. She took it to Facebook. A couple of days later, I started getting messages from mutual friends. Apparently, Lisa had posted this long, dramatic rant about how I had financially exploited her. She made it sound like I had been mooching off her for years, draining her bank account, and leaving her with nothing after she had invested so much in me. It was honestly insane. She listed out all the things she had paid for, like gas, her own clothes, even her own coffee, and was acting like I had forced her at gunpoint to pay for these things. People were confused. Some thought she was joking. Others assumed I had actually scammed her. I started getting texts from people asking, dude, what is Lisa talking about? I wasn't about to sit there and let her spread this nonsense, so I made my own post. Relationships aren't financial contracts. No one forced anyone to stay. If dating someone means they owe you money for your time, then we should all be billing our exes. Move on. That was it. No calling her out directly, no arguing. Just a simple reality check, and it worked. The comments on her post flipped on her fast. People were asking if she was okay, if this was a joke, or if she was seriously trying to charge an ex for existing. Some people even started making fun of her, asking if she had Venmo requests pending for all her past relationships. Instead of realizing how insane she sounded, Lisa doubled down. She started privately messaging my friends, trying to turn them against me. She told them I had wasted her prime years, and that I was a cheap, selfish man who expected women to pay their own way. Yeah, that was the real issue. She wasn't mad about the money. She was mad that I wasn't the rich guy she had imagined for herself. Eventually, she must have realized it wasn't working, because she deleted the post and unfollowed half our mutual friends. I thought that was the last I'd hear from her, but a few weeks later, she reached out one last time, and this time, it wasn't about money. A few weeks went by, and I hadn't thought about Lisa in a while. After her whole social media meltdown, she pretty much vanished. She deleted the post, unfollowed a bunch of people, and stopped trying to trash my name. Then, out of nowhere, she messaged me at first. I thought maybe she was going to apologize or at least try to explain herself. But no, Lisa doesn't do accountability. Instead, she wanted a favor. She told me she was having a hard time and needed someone to talk to, that she was feeling lost and alone and didn't have anyone who really understood her. Yeah, the same person who tried to invoice me for dating her was now acting like we were old friends. I just stared at the message for a minute. I wasn't even mad, just confused. What was I supposed to do with that? Pretend like she hadn't just spent the last month trying to destroy my reputation? Act like she hadn't accused me of financially exploiting her? I thought about responding. Maybe saying something like, "You mean the guy who supposedly owes you $7,680? But honestly, it wasn't even worth it, so I did what I should have done a long time ago. I blocked her. No response. No closure. Just gone, and that was it. Lisa had spent years thinking relationships were all about money, and in the end, she had nothing to show for it. I moved on. She had to sit there and deal with the fact that her attempt to make me pay for my time with her backfired completely. To this day, I still wonder if she ever tried this with another ex. But honestly, not my problem. I thought blocking Lisa was the final chapter. But nope, she wasn't done yet. A week after I ignored her last message, I got a call from her mom.at first. I didn't recognize the number, so I answered, thinking it was a work call. Instead, I got hit with, "I really think you should apologize to Lisa." I swear, I almost laughed. Apologize? For what? Not paying an exit fee for a failed relationship. Lisa's mom went on about how Lisa was going through a tough time, and how she was really hurt by how I treated her. According to her, Lisa had been crying about how unfairly I had taken advantage of her, and she just couldn't believe I was being so heartless. It was honestly unreal. This woman was talking to me like I had abandoned Lisa at the altar or left her in financial ruin. Not like her daughter had billed me for 4 years of dating. I kept my cool and told her, with all due respect, Lisa and I broke up. I don't owe her anything, and I'd appreciate it if you didn't call me about this. That should have been enough, but of course, it wasn't. Lisa's mom kept pushing. She started bringing up how Lisa put so much effort into the relationship, how she deserved some acknowledgement for what she had done for me, and, get this, how I should at least pay her something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman was actually negotiating Lisa's breakup settlement. At that point, I cut her off. I'm not giving Lisa a dime. She needs to move on, and so do you. Then I hung up. I thought that was the end of it, but Lisa's dad called me later that night. I didn't answer. Blocked him too. At this point, it was just getting embarrassing. Lisa had dragged her own parents into this mess, thinking they could guilt me into paying up. But all it did was confirm what I already knew. Lisa had never been in this relationship for love. It was always about what she could get out of it, and now that she wasn't getting anything, she was scrambling. I was done. For real this time, or so I thought. A month passed, and I hadn't heard from Lisa. No emails, no texts, nothing from her parents. It was peaceful. I had moved on, focused on my life, and figured she had finally accepted reality. Then, out of nowhere, she emailed me again. At first, I thought she might be apologizing. Maybe she realized how ridiculous her behavior had been. But when I opened the email, I realized I had severely overestimated Lisa's ability to reflect on her actions. She wanted me to break up with her new boyfriend for her. She said she had started dating someone else, but things weren't working out. Instead of handling it herself, she thought I, as her most meaningful relationship, should deliver the news. She went on about how she didn't want to hurt him, how I understood her best, and how it would be the least I could do after everything she had done for me. I read it twice just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Lisa, the same woman who sent me a bill for our relationship, was now treating me like her personal relationship manager. I didn't respond. I blocked her email and assumed that was the last of it. Then, 2 days later, a random number called me. I usually ignore unknown calls, but something told me to pick this one up. It was Lisa's new boyfriend. He sounded confused, almost embarrassed. He told me Lisa had mentioned me a lot and had suggested that I would be the one to explain things. He wanted to know if I had any insight on why she had suddenly distanced herself from him. At that point, I couldn't help myself. I laughed. This poor guy was just as blindsided as I had been when Lisa first dumped me. I told him, as politely as possible, that I had no idea why Lisa thought I was responsible for ending her relationships and that he should take it up with her. He sighed and muttered, "Yeah, I think I see what's going on." I asked him what he meant, and he admitted that Lisa had been acting weird lately. Apparently, She talked about money a lot, constantly comparing him to wealthier guys, complaining about small expenses, and making passive-aggressive comments whenever he didn't cover everything. Sounded familiar. I wished him luck and hung up. That should have been the end of it. But Lisa wasn't done. A week later, I got a message from a mutual friend. He sent me a screenshot of another Facebook post from Lisa. This time, she was ranting about how she was done with low-value men, and how she had wasted years on people who didn't understand what a woman deserves. It was painfully obvious that she was talking about me and her new ex. The comments were a mix of people agreeing with her, others questioning why she kept ending up with the same low-value men, and a few straight-up laughing at her, and just like that, Lisa burned another bridge. I didn't say anything. I didn't comment. I just let it all unfold. A few weeks later, I heard she had moved to another city. I have no idea if she found a new guy, tried her relationship invoice again, or finally figured out that men aren't walking ATMs. But whatever happened, it was no longer my problem, and for the first time in a while, I actually felt bad for the next guy. After Lisa's last Facebook rant, I figured I had seen the last of her. She had burned bridges, embarrassed herself, and probably moved on to her next investment opportunity. Life was peaceful again. Then, about a month later, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Lisa. She wasn't asking for money this time. She wasn't trying to get me involved in another breakup. Instead, she had one last request. She wanted me to talk to her parents for her. Apparently, after her dramatic exit from our social circles, things had fallen apart between her and her family. They had gotten sick of her behavior, especially after she tried to drag them into our nonsense months earlier. Her parents had cut her off financially, and now she was struggling. She didn't have enough money for rent. She didn't have a stable job. She was couch-hopping between friends, but they were running out of patience with her too. And somehow, in that twisted mind of hers, she thought I would be the one to fix this. She said that since I had always been level-headed, I could reach out to her parents and convince them to forgive her and help her out. That was it. That was her plan. She had spent months dragging my name through the dirt, demanding money, trying to make me the villain in her story, and now she wanted me to clean up her messy. Didn't even bother responding. I just stared at the message for a second, sighed, and blocked her for the last time, and that was it. That was truly the last I ever heard from Lisa. From what I gathered through mutual friends, her parents didn't take her back. She ended up moving out of state and bouncing from job to job. No one really kept up with her after that. As for me, I moved on. I started dating again, met someone who actually saw me as a partner instead of a walking investment, and never looked back. Lisa thought she could treat relationships like business transactions. She thought she could charge an exit fee for dating her. She thought she could make me responsible for every bad decision she made. In the end, she lost everything. After Lisa's final text, I was sure I had closed that chapter of my life for good. I blocked her, moved on, and figured I'd never hear her name again. But life has a funny way of wrapping things up in the most satisfying way possible. About a year later, I was out with some friends at a bar when I ran into someone unexpected. Lisa's cousin. I hadn't seen him in years, but he recognized me immediately. We made some small talk, and then, with a knowing smirk, he said, "So, you heard about Lisa, right?" I hadn't, but I was curious. He grinned and told me everything. After she left town, things went from bad to worse. She jumped from job to job, struggling to keep anything steady. The luxury lifestyle she had always wanted? Gone. She had burned through whatever savings she had, and no guy was willing to fund her anymore. Apparently, she tried the same relationship invoice stunt on another ex. But this time, the guy actually threatened to take her to court for harassment. That was the moment she realized she had officially hit rock bottom. She ended up moving back home, but not on her own terms. Her parents let her stay, but under strict conditions. She had to work, pay rent, and, for the first time in her life, take responsibility for herself. No more shopping sprees. No more fancy brunches. No more trying to manipulate people into paying her way. The cousin laughed and said, "Man, you really dodged a bullet." And he was right. I walked away from that conversation feeling lighter than I ever had before. Lisa had spent years trying to game the system, treating relationships like a financial contract, and expecting men to fund her life. She thought she could demand money for dating her, twist reality to make herself the victim, and manipulate people into fixing her mistakes. But in the end, reality caught up to her, and I didn't have to do a single thing. The best revenge is living well, and trust me, I'm doing just fine.